Okay, next, let's talk about the differences between symmetric and asymmetric encryption. So, symmetric encryption uses the same key, okay, it's symmetric on both sides. It's going to use that same key to both encrypt and decrypt a piece of data. Okay, so symmetric keys, as you might guess, are very fast. All right, so here we have a secret key that's used on both the encryption and the decryption side of the equation here. So, same key used for both. So, if I have hello students as my plain text, it goes through my encryption algorithm, secret keys applied, generates some ciphertext. That ciphertext is sent to the recipient. They use that same key, all right, the same secret key, to decrypt and revert that encrypted or that ciphertext back into plain text. Okay, so as I mentioned, same key is used for both encryption and decryption, all right, often referred to as a shared key or a secret key encryption. All right, so as far as concerns go, key management is really the biggest concern because both parties must know the secret key. It's also very difficult to prove identity because if you think about it, multiple people could know that secret key. All right, if I need to communicate with multiple parties using this encryption platform, this encryption algorithm, and I'm using the same key, well, if I have that shared among 5 different people, then I don't necessarily know which one of the 5 sent that message because any one of those could have used that key. But conversely, if I want to communicate in an encrypted fashion with more than one person, and I don't want to use the same key for each communication session, then I have to manage multiple keys, okay? And again, that becomes unmanageable, especially at scale. And as I mentioned, symmetric is faster than asymmetric because it's a single key for both encryption and decryption. Now, strength is also affected by the length of the key and the number of iterations you have to go through in the algorithm. In other words, how hard does that algorithm have to work in order to process and encrypt that data? The shorter is obviously faster, but it's less secure. Asymmetric encryption, on the other hand, uses a two-key system, okay, a public key and a private key. So in that instance, I have basically two sides of the equation here, a sender and a recipient. The sender is going to encrypt that plain text with the recipient's public key. All right, so the sender has to have that recipient's public key ahead of time. So you'll share public keys amongst people that want to communicate. All right, so that public key is then used to encrypt that piece of data, the resultant ciphertext. The recipient then uses their private key to decrypt what was encrypted with the public key. It's a two-key system here that are mathematically linked. So the public key can encrypt something. The only thing that can decrypt that is the private key. All right, so that's where we get the two-key system from. All right, so two keys, one public, one private. Now in that same situation, as I mentioned, key pair, one for encryption, the other for decryption. A public key, as the name implies, is made publicly available. So you can give that to anyone. They can then use that to encrypt data back to you. A private key, on the other hand, that must be kept secret. Okay, that must be guarded at all cost. And then either key can encrypt or either key can decrypt, depending upon what we're doing. All right, so we can encrypt with the public key, as I mentioned, and then decrypt with the private key. We can also encrypt with the private key and decrypt with the public key, okay, if we're doing digital signatures and so forth. So messages encrypted cannot be decrypted with the same key. That's why we have this two-key pair system. Public cannot do public, just as private cannot do private. If you encrypt with the public, you have to decrypt with the private and vice versa. Okay, so just understand that basic concept.